Describe an issue that arising on this scenario. Based on the scenario, the issue is Section 140 definition of express and implied authority. An authority is said to be expressed when it's given by words, spoken or written, and an authority said to be implied when it's to be inferred from circumstance of the cases and things spoken or written, or the ordinary course of dealing may be accounted circumstances of the cases. B. Explain the relevant provision under the Contract Act 1950. The relevant provision under the Sale of Goods Act 1950, it refers to the requirement for a legally binding enforceable agreement between parties. It is because intention to create legal relation consists of readiness of a party to accept the legal sequences of having entered into an agreement. The reason should to demonstrated when both parties shows that they are serious about entering into a binding agreement. As the Contract Act 1950 state that in a contract, both parties must have the intention to enter into the contract. It's not necessary that what they had their mind, but whether they will draw a complete agreement by their words and action that they want to bound legally.
Question C. Propose a relevant case to support your answer. Proposed relevant case. A relevant case supporting this scenario is this case Waffle vs. Waffle 1919 Gulungan 2 KB 571. The plaintiff, Miss Waffle, sued the defendant, Mr. Waffle, her husband, for money due under an alleged verbal agreement whereby he undertook to allow her 20 a month in consideration of her agreeing to support herself without calling upon him for any further maintenance. Question D. Testify a good conclusion to the above issue. Conclusion. In this case, this is related to fault of his husband because without inform or notice to spend the money of the credit card. The solution is advising his wife to make an agreement or contract in writing as an evidence to confirm that she has no rights to use the money without by his husband as awareness and attention. Hence, both parties must be willing to respond to the agreement made in order to make an agreement as a legally binding contract.
So I'm going to explain about the question 2. A. Describe an issue that arising on the scenario. Issue. Whether Zainal refuses to hand over the money to Jamal even though the car is not his. B. Explain the relevant provision under the Sale of Goods Act 1957. Relevant provision under the Sale of Goods Act 1957. Under the Sale of Goods 1957, Section 27 addresses the seller's authority to sell. According to this section, if the seller does not have the right to sell the goods, the buyer does not obtain ownership provided the buyer acted in good faith and was not aware of the seller's lack of authority.
Question C. Propose a relevant case to support your answer. Propose relevant case. A relevant case supporting this scenario is the case of Roland vs. Devil 1923 2 KB 50/100. In this case, the court held that if a seller does not have a right to sell the goods, the buyer cannot acquire ownership even if the buyer was unaware of the seller's lack of authority. Question D. Complete a good conclusion to the above issue. Conclusion. In this scenario, Jamal purchased the car in good faith from Zainal, believing Zainal had legal ownership. However, upon discovering the true ownership rights with Shahrul, Jamal had to return the car. As the Sale of Goods Act 1957 and the legal precedent set by case like Roland vs. Devil, since Zainal lacked the authority to sell the car, Jamal does not acquire ownership rights. Therefore, Jamal is entitled to claim the money paid for the car from Zainal, considering the lack of legal authority by Zainal to sell the vehicles. Relevant provision under the Sale of Goods Act 1957. Under the Sale of Goods Act 1957, Section 27 addressed the seller authority to sell. According to this section, if the seller does not have the right to sell the goods, the buyer does not obtain ownership, provided the buyer acted in good faith and was not aware of the seller's lack of authority.